We're currently in Beyond Our Walls, which is about Deakin's impact on community. So students, staff, alumni, but also it's Geelong, it's Melbourne, it's Warrnambool, it's the research and the impactful work that's happening beyond our communities. It's all to make the world a better place, and it's all to benefit communities. And so with this exhibition, we've tried to talk about that and show how Deakin is working towards that goal.
We are on the lands of the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and they are the traditional custodians of this land. As we celebrate Deakin's 50-year anniversary, let us remember that education has a long and rich history on this continent, where teaching and learning has been taking place for tens of thousands of years. We pay our respects to elders and ancestors for allowing us to have this gathering on their land and acknowledge their continuing connection to this beautiful country and thank them for their care and custodianship over many thousands of years. I extend this respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders here with us this evening. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here today. My name's Lucinda Buckley, and it's my pleasure to work here at Deakin Library. And it's a real joy to be with you all here today to celebrate this beautiful exhibition, Beyond Our Walls. And I know lots of you in the room have been involved in this exhibition in many different ways. So it's so nice to come together and celebrate this exhibition and celebrate the stories of our community. This exhibition really is a testament to the importance of community. And when our curators were developing this exhibition, it became apparent really quickly that community means different things to different people. To a lot of people we engaged, community was about the community of Deakin, the community within our university. And then to others, it was very much about Deakin interacting with the wider community and looking at what we can do as a university to make a positive impact on communities outside the walls of our university. I think that this is really well reflected in this exhibition, and I'm really excited to take a deeper dive into some of these stories about community with our panellists tonight, and Pip will introduce them in just a moment. But first, I would like to introduce Pip Minnie, who is a curator and exhibitions producer with extensive experience in developing and delivering engaging exhibitions and audience programs. Pip's had roles at institutions such as the National Gallery of Australia, Geelong Gallery, and the National Gallery of Victoria. In her current role as Manager of Exhibitions and Public Programs here at Deakin, Pip collaborates with researchers, students and academics to present thought-provoking exhibitions that bridge academia with the wider community. So it's a great pleasure to welcome Pip to moderate tonight's panel. Pip is, not only a curator for us here at Deakin and, the manager of exhibitions and public programs, but also a Deakin alumni. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what she and the other panellists have to say this evening. Thank you, Pip.
Thank you, Lucinda. Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? All right, great. I'm so pleased to be here, and I wish now to introduce you to our amazing lineup of panellists for this evening. So over on the far side, we have Anthony Catrice, who has had a long career working in archives, including 30 years at Deakin. He has an interest in the evidential role of records and record-keeping practices and their effect on memory and knowledge. While an interest in archival science has led him to write occasionally for professional journals, Anthony is inspired not so much by theory, but by daily human interactions, where archives connect with people to inform, tell important stories, and delight, which I think is absolutely evident in these exhibitions. Then we have Katia Freitas. Katia is an Associate Teaching Fellow at Deakin University and a Marine Science Educator at the Great Southern Reef Foundation. Her work focuses on increasing ocean literacy in formal education. She completed her PhD at Deakin, exploring how ocean-themed picture books could be used in schools to educate the young generation about our valuable and endangered Great Southern Reef. Then we have Cheryl Townsend. Cheryl is a Deakin alumni, having studied at Deakin since its opening in 1977. Prior to studying at Deakin, Cheryl attended the Gordon Institute of Technology, where she studied a Bachelor of Applied Science Nutrition. When Deakin merged with the Gordon, this degree was converted to a Bachelor of Science, and she graduated in 1979. She enrolled in postgrad studies, but decided to embark on a 5-year adventure travelling the world and working in Austria, the Greek islands and England, and something that my mother would be shocked with, hitchhiking her way across Europe. In 1985, Cheryl returned to Australia to work in the public service before relocating to Canberra in 1997 to perform testing on the Y2K bug. This kicked off a career in IT. She then made her way back to Deakin and for the past 19 years has worked as a business analyst in student services. And finally, Talicia Smith. Talicia is a current Deakin student in the second year of her PhD, where she is researching the effects of micro and nanoplastics on the immune system. Talicia has been with Deakin since 2018, where she began her tertiary studies with a Diploma of Science at Deakin College, before studying a Bachelor of Science with honours. Talicia has an impressive history of student involvement at Deakin and currently works as a wellbeing ambassador and a graduate research teaching fellow. So welcome all, and thank you very much for being here. Thank you everyone for joining us for this exploration of personal stories and Deakin's rich history and the way that this history has fostered and shaped communities over the past 50 years. In its early years, Deakin wasn't just a place of study, but a place where students built lifelong friendships, where local industries collaborated, and where education became a tool for social change. Deakin's impact is felt across healthcare, environmental research, and social initiatives. This year, we'll hear from voices across different generations and who will share their personal stories. I'm also sure that many of you will have your own personal stories. I'm looking at you, Robin. Tonight, and so I think what we'll do is after we've asked a couple of questions, we can open it up to the floor and people can share their stories and they can also ask questions. So I'd like to start by asking a question to Cheryl. Cheryl, you were here when this campus first opened on the 1st of April 1977, which is actually the exact week back then to where we are now. There was a party right here outside the library to celebrate the opening of the university. Can you tell us what it was like at that party?
A little bit. A little bit. The day started off with a chicken and champagne breakfast right outside there, which wasn't like that at all. It was just a green grassy paddock, and we were provided with a T-shirt, the Deakin 1977 1st of April T-shirt that we all had. And also we were provided with magnums of champagne and chicken. I think the budget, it was $1.99 a bottle then, so it probably made the budget then. But the most exciting thing we tried was to shake it up and try and get the corks onto the library building here. So, whoa, you'd suddenly hear a whoa, and somebody landed a cork on the library building. And I've got to admit, it went a bit hazy after that. I don't know whether we had lectures that day or not. I don't know. I can't remember, but I do remember trying to get as many corks on the library building as possible. And the sentiment towards the change, there was a little bit of angst because we were at Gordon. Gordon was well established. It was, it had a good reputation as a tertiary educator. We were moving to Deakin, the fourth university. A bit of angst at that stage, but history has put later those fears. The Deakin degree is very well recognised now. Otherwise, there wasn't really much of a change to our curriculum, and we just went on happily studying.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I wonder if we now bring Anthony into the discussion. So, Anthony, in terms of, we know that Deakin started in 1974 with the Act, but then, Cheryl was here as a student in 1977. Can you tell us a bit about those kind of 3 years in between and, following on from Cheryl, what the sentiment was within the community?
Yeah, sure. So, I guess the archives sort of tell the story, but they don't tell everything. What I have read in the archives about community relations or engagement is probably the most sort of thing that stuck in my mind was when Fred Jevons, the first Vice-Chancellor, said that Deakin was an unwelcome intruder on the landscape, thrust upon the landscape, and the community that was loyal to its existing higher education institutions, as sort of Cheryl kind of indicated. There was some loyalty to kind of the Gordon, and in 1977 the decision was to move everything from the Gordon and the State College of Victoria in Geelong to Deakin. So that was kind of the cause of some angst amongst the community. But the efforts to sort of get a university in Geelong really commenced kind of well before the Act was passed in 1974. So in 1959 there was a University for Geelong committee that so there was always an interest there was a community interest, although that community would have probably been mostly people on that committee would have been educationalists and people from industry and business, etc., not necessarily the average Geelong person. So then the university happened in 1974. Act was passed, and in 75 I think they settled here on the campus, I think, and then 77 the decision was made to take on those other institutions. So the archives only tell so much, but you can tell that there was, when Fred Jevons in 1985 was kind of thinking of his last 10 years of service, he was thinking about the problems with kind of establishing a university in Geelong, finding that community kind of relationship. No doubt there would have been a lot of interest, a lot of very keen interest in Deakin, but there was also some kind of, animosity, I guess, from people loyal to those old institutions.
And there are examples in this exhibition, aren't there, of initiatives that Deakin took to actually contribute to community and kind of, open education in the form of the Geelong Public Lectures. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. There were lots of those sorts of programs. There was exhibitions, public lectures, a way of sort of the university giving back to the Geelong community to sort of contribute to the intellectual life of the town. And that was very successful, the Geelong lectures. I think they ran for a good 10 years or so, and they had some very good people giving the lectures, and we have all those lectures in the archives. They've all been recorded. They're quite fascinating. I think the first one was on the nuclear energy, which is obviously very kind of current. It's always been an interesting issue, and currently something that's being discussed. So those lectures were great, and they're very well attended by Geelong people. And also when they launched some of the learning materials, Geelong or the general public were invited to attend launches of films and some of those programs around all the programs that we see with the distance education programs. So I think Deakin's always been kind of careful to sort of include and make education available to Geelong people and the community at large. And when you talk about distance education, of course, then we're going beyond Geelong, throughout Victoria and Australia. So there's, as you see in the exhibition today, there was lots of initiatives to address that kind of, some of those earlier concerns.
Incredible. Well, I guess going back to the student experience, Cheryl, in the early years of the university, there must have been just like the university was thinking about serving the wider community, the university must have been thinking about the student community. I'm wondering if you can tell us about the importance of the ways that students came together at that time, because it must have felt like you were pioneers almost as, the first students in the cohort.
We did. I was given some statistics earlier. When Deakin started, there was only 2,500 students compared to sort of like 40,000 students then. So it was a smaller community. We knew everyone. We knew different years, everyone from different years, different streams. There was only Archie, Nutrition and Commerce. But we did have the Biol Society. We had all our little societies, and we had our wind cheaters. So we had our little gangs. There was the Asian Society, as I remember, which was the most popular because they had the best food. And then we had Deakin University Ski Club. At that stage, we only had 2 semesters. We had semester 1, semester 2. That was it, with a break in between. And at the end of semester 1, as soon as your exam finished, you had the skis on the roof of your car and you were gone to the snow for a week. We're Deakin University Ski Club. So that's where I first started skiing and subsequently went to Austria to ski. We had a squash team, I remember, and we played within the local comp. So, and of course they were the surfers that would fit in a couple of waves before the first lectures. So there was a community within the students where we had parties, there were union nights, various things like that.
Did it feel like quite a kind of coastal campus, like in terms of a surf community? Was that a vibe?
Yes, there was. We had, I remember the guys in our class, they'd be sort of first lecture and you go, they've gone surfing this morning. And even in those days, I used to go down to the beach before lectures. I was a lot younger then. I couldn't do it now. It was. We had a lot of Melbourne people, but everybody sort of lived in Geelong. It was Geelong. We were Geelong.
That's lovely. And I guess when we think about this campus, what we have now, and we look at the photos back then, it was paddocks and cows and just a couple of cars. Prior to development, it might have felt quite isolated. Back then, how did students get around? How did you actually get onto campus?
I hate to admit this, but yet hitchhiking.
Hitchhiking. Okay. Mm.
In fact, it was promoted because down the road over there were hitchhiking posts. And
Hitchhiking posts.
Would have the suburb. I'd just like to point out the difference between 1977 notes here and the current student notes. So you'd go and stand next to Geelong West or wherever you wanted to go, and a student that had a car would pick you up and take you there. And I think actually one of my classmates met her future husband that way. So there are advantages of hitchhiking.
That's lovely. And so, but they were still strangers? They were students and they were strangers?
You sort of knew them. Yeah. You knew them. And, the classes became similar. You'd know that so-and-so was going by. And then in second year, I had my own car. So I'd pick up hitchhikers then. I've got a little prop here to show you what it was like. It's a picture that's over there. But, get this out. So this is what it was like over there. And that little highlighted car is my little car in the car park over there. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me. And so you can see how, I've got to put this down because I need my hand. You can see how isolated and barren it was. And, that was the dirt road that came in. If you were late, you parked up the hill over there. That was the car there, you'd park there. You jump the little creek, run across the paddock to your lectures. And that's what it was like in the early days. And I'm going to tell you a funny story about this. I was sent this by the archives. And I had it up on my desk, and one of my younger colleagues looked across and said, "Is that Stonehenge?" So went, ouch.
Not that old.
That's Stonehenge 1977.
Oh, the idea of a commute without traffic kind of sounds quite tranquil, actually. Well, Talicia, let's jump forward to the present day. Obviously, a lot has changed since the 70s, evident in the way that we're all writing notes. Can you tell us how you came to attend Deakin? So I understand you were the first in your family to study at university. were there any particular opportunities at Deakin that meant you could create your own community?
Yeah, so hi. So I'm actually from a rural town called Ararat. May or may not know. Oh, really? Don't usually get nods from that. And I came as a mature age student at 21. So yeah. And I was without an ATAR. So I actually came through the pathway program called Deakin College. And I was, the first in my family, to pass year 10. So this kind of seemed like a bit of a wild adventure. And I didn't do too well in high school, failed technically. But when I started doing well in my first year here, I got really energized and exhausted, but I really wanted to pass that on to new students and help in their journey. And I did that by mentoring, and that was really a foot in the door into this community. I went from mentoring Deakin College students to kind of showing around the new students and giving campus tours as an orientation ambassador. And then those roles landed me a job as a wellbeing ambassador. And that position has led me to meet hundreds of Deakin students, and I've connected with so many of them. So that, and living here for 2 years as well, it was really hard not to feel a part of the community. And I've been involved in more university activations and events and meetings that I can count, which is all to say that Deakin has given me so many avenues to feel fully incorporated into the culture and the people of the university, which can be really hard because there is so many of them now. There's always a chance to get involved here.
Oh, I love that. Do you, in terms of your engagement with fellow students, are you coming across others who are the first in their family and need a bit of guidance?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of international students here as well, which is beautiful. But not only are they just starting university, they're in a completely different country. So there's so many people from so many different walks of life, and nobody should do anything alone, really. So.
Oh, it's great that Deakin has those programs. So community at Deakin is not just about Deakin's own community, but also how the university interacts and impacts its local communities. There are a lot of stories in this exhibition which reflect this and other projects. And this is where I can bring in Katia's Ocean Literary Project. Katia, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Oh, sorry, I forget about this. Not used to it. So, Deakin really gave me the opportunity to work with community, and that was amazing because I really found what I'm passionate about, and that was through my PhD mostly. But just before I start and go there, I might just. I know we're not right there yet, but I might just start with a question. So normally I'm used to talk with primary school students, and they're very, they always like to contribute. And I start my sessions by always asking the question that actually made me start this whole project, which was, have you ever heard about the Great Southern Reef before? You can put your hand up if you have. All right, so for all of you that never heard about it, don't feel bad about it, because actually there's a very good reason for that. This is our reef down here, so it's our local reef. It's at our doorstep. I never heard about it before coming to Australia either, more specifically Victoria. So as an international student, I always knew about the Great Barrier Reef, but I never heard about the Great Southern Reef, which is an amazing, beautiful, unique, and big reef that we have all the way from New South Wales down to Tasmania and then up to Kalbarri in Western Australia. But instead of corals, it's made of kelp. Right, so it's made of kelp. It's the main habitat forming species, mainly the golden kelp. But in fact, we have the highest diversity of red seaweed, for example. So it was a bit shocking for me that I never heard about this reef before. And the reason for that is it actually was only given a name in 2016. So it was not long ago. So we're trying to build that awareness and that connection with people here, especially I worked with children mostly because in my idea back then was that if we give them the chance to go to their local reef or to local beach and see something that they can recognize and they can name it, then it will be easier to form that connection, right? So I had to find a way to raise this awareness, but I wanted like a fun way, an innovative way. So I thought, well, what about picture books? So that's what I did. So I looked to the picture books that were featuring the reef down here. But what did I find? There were not many, if any, when I started the PhD. Luckily, unfortunately, now we do have many more, which is good news. And I did use those books, which is about a collection of the ones that I used for the PhD. It's a collection of 8 books that they represent the Great Southern Reef. So I actually brought them. I might show you 2 or 3 if that's all right, very quickly. They're beautiful. And what I do is my connection with community mostly was with schools. My initial idea was to kind of engage children, but I ended up working with lots of teachers, and they were as fascinated as the children about everything they learn about the ocean. Because teaching about the ocean is not mandatory in the curriculum in Australia just yet, but Australia is an ocean nation, and it's really well positioned to lead by example in that sense, and has a unique reef down here. What happened was I went to the schools and I brought lots of seaweed, which is a bit difficult as well to create a connection. It's a bit different when you, if you bring, if they go to the ocean on a tour and they see the animals, it's easier, right? So I used to ask them, when you think about seaweed and everything I have here in the tray, what do you think about? And they normally say things like, it's slimy or it's smelly. I was like, yep, correct. What else? So towards the end, it was really amazing because they were so engaged and they wanted to touch, they wanted to learn about it. We would look to the seaweed under the microscope as well. And towards the end, the words were a bit different too. It was more like, it's habitat. It helps us breed. It's home for all the other marine organisms. So they kind of started that connection, and really were the most amazing days of my PhD was when I got to go to the schools, or I would take them down to the beach and just show them, and kind of realizing when I started my idea of working with children as well was like, I'm very afraid to talk with adults. I feel very anxious about it. But I ended up realizing that teachers were so keen to learn as well, and they made me feel very comfortable in that sense. So it kind of really built the connection, so much so that I still work with them these days. And just to finish, share a quick story. One of those teachers, she was a year 3 and 4 teacher in a local school here. And after the program, she became the marine biology teacher for the whole year levels of the school. So, so that really is, gives you this sense of, wow, it's wonderful, and I'm very grateful and, lucky to be able to have done that.
Kati, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
In terms of the response to the project, is it still ongoing? Is it something that schools can book into? How does it work?
So after the PhD, one of the challenges is funding with marine education, especially because it's still not mandatory to teach. But my supervisor, Dr. Prue Francis, she was able to secure funding from the Port Phillip Bay Fund. So we actually bought 100 kits of these picture books and the teacher's guide that we developed, and we distributed it to 100 schools around the Bay. So that program is coming to an end July this year. So at the moment we are visiting schools and organizing incursions or excursions. They can choose one of those. The program is for free as well. And they got a kit. Can I just quickly show?
Of course, yeah.
The books, or maybe 2 of them. So this was the first one. So in 2020, when I started the PhD, we didn't have many books. This one, it's called The Great Southern Reef for that same reason. It was actually written by Dr. Francis and Dr. Paul Venzo. They are both Deakin, and they were both my supervisors. So it was amazing to share the journey with them. It was really good. And Kate James illustrated the book as well, which is it's a beautiful
that's
book.
amazing.
Yeah, it and can be found here in the library too. So that's awesome. But yes, we used many other books. I won't show you all of them, but and then with these books, what we did was to show, to try to support teachers in trying to, because they don't really receive any, they're not trained in marine science because it's not mandatory. So what we tried to do was, instead of, they are already limited in time and the curriculum is very crowded. So what we did was, all right, how can we link these to mathematics, geography, science? That's an easy one. Arts. So arts, the picture books are an amazing way to do that, and children really learn these scientific concepts that can be quite complex sometimes, and through the books they kind of understand it faster and they retain that learning as well. So it was it was a good tool. And I was quite lucky to read picture books for my PhD, really, right?
Yeah, that's incredible. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. It makes me want to read them to my kids and get them away from the Magic Beach, which is a great book, but you know, this is a bit more educational. Talicia, you've been involved in contributing to wider communities, talking about different communities. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that in terms of your travel and volunteering overseas and that kind of work?
Yeah, so along with Deakin-centred opportunities, I've also been able to branch out to, through this institution, to Geelong, through an Indigenous mentoring program called AIM, and also around Victoria through a lived experience storytelling organisation called Batia, and even travelling with lecturers here in as a co-facilitator with a UNESCO funded outreach program for high school science students. But my favourite, however, was the chance to actually kind of take on the world which Deakin gave me as a volunteer internship in India. And I taught conversational English in a rural primary school. And that was my first and only overseas experience. And the fact that I got that just because I was going here at Deakin, it still blows my mind a little bit. So as much as I love it here, this is my comfort zone. I really appreciate, and it's so empowering to kind of get out of my bubble and into the wider community.
Wow. When do you sleep? You seem incredibly engaged. You're giving back. You're studying. It's busy, isn't it? Are you? Yeah. Okay.
A little bit.
No response. Okay, I'll move on. I'm going to bring Anthony back into the conversation. Based on your knowledge of the archives and witnessing the change over the last 30 years of Deakin and listening to these stories, what do you think are some of Deakin's most impactful projects that have benefited the community?
Well, I guess you'd have to call distance education was one of them, was the big one. So that obviously brought education to a lot of people who could not otherwise have access to education, or tertiary education. So when Deakin was established very much on that sort of the principle of lifelong learning, and that kind of, I think that was informed by what was the Carmel report, which came out in 1974, where and same year obviously as Deakin's was established. So yeah, that was kind of led by the government, and Deakin very much came on board with that concept of lifelong learning, and so distance education was a way to for people of any age and any situation and financial, well, I guess there was always financial limitations, but with free education there was certainly far more kind of opportunity than there would be now or before. So pretty much education was accessible for pretty much anyone. So they talked about the housewife from Wycheproof as being the model Deakin distance education student. But of course, there were far more. There were people working in milk bars and on farms. There were, of course, lots of housewives who didn't have access to education because they had families and children and had to support work on the farm as well. So I guess that's that's the major kind of program around sort of engagement with community and making education more accessible to all.
Yeah, amazing. And I know you've mentioned in the past that also in terms of the Geelong community, the waterfront campus has contributed and has changed things.
Yep. So I think Deakin was a little bit at a disadvantage being at Warren Ponds for a while. That was considered a little bit remote from the Geelong community. So getting the campus at Waterfront was a bit of a game change, I think, for Deakin. So that was very much led by John Hay, the third Vice-Chancellor, who negotiated with the Kerner government and the Kennett government to sort of make it happen. So those wool stores were very much great location, great buildings. There was a great opportunity, and the renovations were, done extremely well by like McGlash and Everest, and it's amazing to think they're still there, unchanged. Since that renovation, they're still fit for purpose, doing exactly what they were designed to do, and it brought Deakin to the Geelong community. And the alternative, could have been, Geelong could have lost, some more of those sort of iconic wall stores that sort of so important to the town. So
yeah, I was at school when they were being built, and I remember that we got to have one of our high school concerts or something in the hall there, and it just felt like this new world that had suddenly opened up right in the centre of Geelong, these beautiful bricks. And I guess it's now kind of setting a bit of a, it's set a precedent for all this other work that's happening in Geelong with the industrial buildings and disused spaces. I might open this up to the whole panel. What do you think is the most important thing that Deakin can do to help its own community, as well as its own wider communities, flourish today and beyond? I'm asking the curly questions now.
Shall I go first? Shall I go first?
Yeah.
I think Deakin is doing a really good thing at the moment, because with all the industries, etc., closing down in Geelong, it's a very good employer. It's a big employer after Barwon Health. And also it sponsors a lot of things like the football. You go to the football and you see Deakin University everywhere, the arts, the theatre as well. So I think it's doing a really good job as is. The alumni networking as well. So,
yeah, it's a good point, and it's also kind of taps into that, post-industrial Geelong and the work with carbon and new materials that's been happening at Deakin as well. All the research
happening up the hills, yeah.
Also, I guess you could also talk about the Warrnambool campus and the commitment sort of to Warrnambool and education there. Cheryl mentioned the alumni, and I think there's kind of an interest, quite a push to sort of engage more with alumni and engage with the history of the university, and including its antecedent institutions, and to sort of develop a kind of a sense of sort of pride in Deakin and acknowledge its history. And so there's kind of there seems to be kind of a positive feeling around the university, and that they're on the right track. So I guess to echo Cheryl's point, I think just to keep what they've been doing, and things are going quite well, I'd imagine, from my perspective.
And the other thing I think you were mentioning about the waterfront now looking so nice.
Yeah.
And you see what was known as the old TNG building, where the clock tower is, which was falling into disrepair, and now you go down there and you see the Deakin flag flying, and they've restored, and it looks really nice. So they're doing sort of an impact into Deakin as a presence, into Geelong as a presence, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. In your opinion, right, being an old Geelong person, for virtually most of your life, would you say that Geelong could now call itself, in the classic sense, a university town? Do you think that's that because so many places identify with their particular the very fact they've got a university, varsity if you like, associated with their actual city. Oxford's a classic, of course,
Yeah.
Cambridge and so on.
I think
But I'm just wondering what your opinion would be on that.
well,
Thank you.
I think so. Deakin does have a strong presence in Geelong, as I was saying, with the sponsorships and all that. And I think there was a push to make it a university city a few years ago. I don't know what happened there, but yep, University Hospital. Yeah, I suppose so. As close as we can get to a university, but there's also Burwood as well. So I'm focusing on Geelong because I'm a Geelong person. But just the other things, yesterday I was in the supermarket and I was chatting to the girl and she's just come here doing first year marine science. She's loving it. So everywhere you go, there's a student employed somewhere or the other doing something. And you go, oh yes, I work there. And yeah, so I think it has infiltrated into Geelong a lot.
Yeah, it's like the university is a way to connect with other communities as well. It's the one place, but it has so many kind of tentacles out into Geelong. I mean, another question I could ask, does anyone have a particularly favourite spot on any of the campuses where they've got really fond memories or somewhere special that they go? Or Katia, you nodded your head, so I'm going to call on you.
Yeah, it's actually the place where I still work. So it's where I did my PhD. It's at Queenscliff. So we do have the Marine Science Centre there. When I first started, I thought that I was going to be based in here. I came here a few times, but as a marine science student, we are based there. So I actually even looked for a house near this campus and then realized I have to drive a lot. But it was worth it. The Marine Science Centre there overlooks the Swan Bay area, and I was lucky enough to have a desk near the window. So I actually, during the afternoon, I would just see black swans and spoonbills and even cat sharks sometimes. And it's a beautiful seagrass meadow there too. So yeah, it was amazing, and I'm still kind of thinking like how lucky to have found that particular spot. and I still love to go there almost every day, and yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's good community there too. Yeah.
Wow. Does anyone else have any other spots to share? It doesn't have to have such amazing wildlife.
I quite like the oak lawn down at Burwood, Elgar Road. So leave Geelong for a little bit, but so when I started at Deakin, it was a very kind of forlorn old place, Elgar Road campus. It was sort of little bit abandoned. It closed down as a children's home in like late 80s, and then became part of Victoria College, and then Deakin merged with Victoria College, and then suddenly Deakin had this big campus at Burwood and lots of campuses in Melbourne, and this adjunct to Burwood, which was the older Lambie, was kind of where they put the people they didn't really quite know what to do with. So that's where they put me and the archives. And so I was there with a group of sort of odd people in the university. And it was quite a forlorn old place back then. But now it's looking kind of beautiful, and it's sort of one of the few places on campus, at Burwood at least, where you have lots of grass and trees and things, and there's lots of birds and ducks and stuff. So, and it's kind of a nice, and people come back there. People who grew up there in the children's home come back there, and it's just a nice kind of healing. It feels like a healing sort of place. And
Yeah, Anthony, that's another community that you serve, I think, with people who come to the children's home to walk through and reflect. I'm very impressed that you take the time to have that one-on-one interaction with those people. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Oh, sure. So so as I said, I've been there for a long time, and people used to wander through, and perhaps a little bit kind of emotional and distraught, or they'd find me, and then they'd come and, I'd say, you okay or whatever, and have a chat. And then I came to learn a little bit about the history of that children's home, and developed a network, I guess, of people I knew, and then thought, well, I've got to help these people a little bit because I've got to find out what I should be doing because I don't know. So I found that they wanted to connect to a physical place that they remember in the absence of family, home, family, etc. That was kind of something they could connect to. So anyway, I would connect them with their records because they're often interested in their client files, which is often a traumatising experience. So you can send them off to Public Records Office of Victoria, and then it's that's not always easy. So I developed a network of people with Open Place and Uniting Care and around getting these people to have access to kind of the services that they might need and access to their records. We've had reunions and all sorts of things, and that's been quite a positive kind of experience. It's kind of taxing, but it's
Pip, just on this kind of topic of sense of place, one thing I did want to point out is that we have this wall over to the side here called Mapping Our Memories. And this wall invites people who come into the exhibition to take a sticker and write their memories on it and put it on the wall. And so when you look at this wall, you do get this sense of what Deakin as a place and certain parts of Deakin mean to people, which I think is really beautiful. And when I look at that wall and what people have put on that wall, one thing that really strikes me about it is the intergenerational nature of people's memories and, people's connection to Deakin. There's a lot of comments up there about, my dad lived on residence here and now I'm living on residence here. And, there's comments about, my mum and my grandma both studied here or both worked here. So this sense that community that Deakin is creating is carrying on through generations and isn't just kind of a singular thing that one person experiences. And just to kind of add a little anecdote to that, Pip and I met with someone here in the exhibition yesterday who wasn't a student of Deakin, had never studied at Deakin, but she came in and she looked at this timeline, which is behind our panellists here, and she sort of gasped and said, "This is my history." And she went on to explain that, her dad was a professor here, a professor of sociology, and that she'd come onto campus as a child and, had donuts and meat pies in the cafeteria and what an important part of her upbringing Deakin was, even though she never actually studied here. And I think, so often when people come into this experience, come into this exhibition, that's what's coming out, this fact that Deakin has touched so many people's lives. And, for those of you who do have memories at Deakin, I really encourage you to write a little sticker up and stick it on the wall because that will all be documented and it would be just beautiful to have your memories included up there.
And it's disconnected at the moment so we could all fit in, but there is a website, the Deakin 50th website, where you can go and share a memory too. So upload a photo, share a memory. It's a really important way for us to all learn. Well, so we're formally concluding our discussion tonight. I wish to extend a heartfelt thank you to our panellists. Thank you so much. So Cheryl Townsend, Anthony Catrice, Katia Freitas and Talicia Smith. I also want to thank Lucinda Buckley for organising this seamless event, along with the rest of the library exhibitions and public programs team, and thank Deakin's digital storytelling team for documenting this event for posterity. Maybe at the 100th anniversary, this might be used in an exhibition then, and I wish that curator good luck. So this exhibition runs until the 11th of May. It will then tour to Burwood and Waterfront and rotate with 2 other exhibitions. So Shaping the Future, Deakin's Legacy of Research, and Bridging the Distance, Deakin's Leadership in Distance Education, which opens here on the 26th of May. These exhibitions will then be joined by a Warrnambool exhibition titled Roots of Resilience, which opens at that campus on the 9th of May. So thank you once again. Have a lovely evening. Please continue to enjoy food and drinks. Thank you.